Okay, so you all have been asking quite a bit for me to do this style of guide on some homebrew classes, so today we're taking a look at probably the most famous homebrew class out there, the Blood Hunter by Matthew Mercer. As a side note on this class, just be sure that whenever you're wanting to play this, talk with your table at session 0, make sure everyone's cool with the sort of narrative that this one's going to evoke. It can lean into some themes that I know I've had people at my own table say that they aren't really comfortable with the Blood Hunter at the table, so there are ways to reflavor some of the glorification of self-harm themes that are kind of happening in here in a way to where it's not necessarily like, evoking these ideas of like cutting or anything like that. So with the Blood Hunter, this class has seen it's seen an evolution ever since its like initial debut. This class was initially designed for Vin Diesel to play in a one-shot with Matt Mercer DMing as a kind of a promo for the last Witch Hunter movie. It has since kind of taken on themes of The Witcher and some of the Bloodborne aesthetic to create what we have now as the Blood Hunter. Now, this is a character that's going to be a little bit more difficult to pilot. I'll just let you know right now, you should definitely not take this as your first class with ever hopping into D&D on. What you should probably do is play something like a fighter, barbarian, or, maybe step into a spellcaster, but I would recommend the Blood Hunter probably for people that have played at least like 2 or 3 characters in D&D. The kind of mini game you're having to playing here with a Hemocraft die potentially causing damage to you makes this one a little bit more intricate than something like, your regular fighter loadout. As somebody that's written quite a bit for this game and DM'd thousands of hours of D&D, I do not recommend the Blood Hunter for first-time players. So let's get into this with the class features, and these guides, I'm kind of giving a little bit of design notes on here because this is a homebrew class and letting you guys know kind of some issues that I might think crop up. So this one is actually highlighted. As you've seen in my previous guides, I did go through and highlight the entire class. So we'll be doing a bit of a talk on why I think some features are probably a little bit niche, some are really strong, what makes them good, etc., etc. So starting out, the Blood Hunter is going to be a D10 hit die class with light armor, medium armor, and shields. What this is telling me is that most likely this one should be comfortable in the front line, but I don't actually think that this is more effectively played in the front line. I actually think that the Blood Hunter is going to be best kept at the midline, if not the back line. Part of what's playing out with the Hemocraft die, all this like subtraction of hit points that's going to be going on, I effectively think that you as a Blood Hunter have at highest about the average hit points that you're going to see maybe a D8 character have in order for you to just use your class features. So I'll talk about that a bit more once we get into it, but you do get all weapon proficiencies here except for, improvised weapons. You get proficiency with alchemist supplies, and then you get dexterity as your strong saving throw and intelligence as your weak save. For skills, you're going to choose any 3 from acrobatics, arcana, athletics, history, insight, investigation, religion, and survival. The intended roleplay dynamic that's getting evoked from a Blood Hunter is that sort of monster hunter, sort of a grim, arcane, occult kind of a character. While some of the design quirks that are in here I might, raise my eyebrow at, I do have to say that like all of Matt Mercer's like narrative beats are extremely consistent across anything he creates. For your equipment, you can get a martial weapon or 2 simple weapons, a light crossbow and 20 bolts, studded leather or scale mail armor, and then an explorer's pack and alchemist supplies. For the most part, I see that the equipment is trying to get you to go with a martial build. You can go with a light crossbow, but I would probably prefer to see a Blood Hunter in the future where it is giving you the option to get the ammunition, on top of all the, So getting into their first level features, Hunter's Bane, I've marked this one as blue mostly because this one, it does give you a perk in here. It is a situational perk, but this is mostly just telling you how the Hemocraft stuff is going to work. So at first level, you have survived the Hunter's Bane, a dangerous, long-guarded ritual that alters your life's blood, forever binding you to the darkness and honing your senses against it. You have advantage on wisdom survival checks to track fae, fiends, or undead, as well as on intelligence checks to recall information about such creatures. I do like this roleplay stuff right in here. You are going to be a bit of the survivalist, sort of a tracker, maybe you could say a navigator in a way. So the Hunter's Vein also empowers your body to control and shape Hemocraft magic, using your own blood and life essence to fuel your abilities. Some of your features require your target to make a saving throw to resist the feature's effects. The saving throw DC is calculated as follows. Your Hemocraft save DC is going to be 8, plus your proficiency bonus, plus either your intelligence or wisdom modifier. So they did give you the option to choose now. I don't know that I would say that there is a more optimal choice here, but I do think that wisdom-based Hemocrafting is probably going to be a little bit stronger in terms of you just having a higher wisdom score, and wisdom saving throws are going to be called more often than intelligence saving throws. So yeah, your pick, go for the flavor pick. That's the important thing. But just kind of your choice between these two, I can't help but think that wisdom is going to be the superior blood hunter. All right, so the other first level feature that you get is Blood Maledict. You gain the ability to channel or sometimes sacrifice a part of your vital essence to curse and manipulate creatures through Hemocraft magic. You know one blood curse of your choice, detailed in the blood curses section at the end of the class description. You learn one additional blood curse of your choice at 6th, 10th, 14th, and 18th level. Each time you learn a new blood curse, you can also choose one of the blood curses you know and replace it with another blood curse. Each time you use your Blood Maledict feature, so this feature we're talking about now, you choose which curse to invoke from the curses you know. While invoking a blood curse, but before it affects the target, you can choose to amplify the curse by taking necrotic damage equal to 1 roll of your Hemocraft die. This damage can't be reduced in any way. An amplified curse gains an additional effect noted in the curse's description. Creatures that do not have blood are immune to the blood curse unless you have amplified the curse. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. You can use Blood Maledict twice between rests starting at 6th level, 3 times starting at 13th level, and 4 times starting at 17th level. So these Blood Maledicts won't actually stick to a particular part of your action economy. They're going to be sort of flexible, either a bonus action, a reaction, or an action. They do vary pretty severely in terms of usefulness and power overall. I should have my color rating system somewhere up over here so you know what all these colors actually mean. I just figured most people that are around the channel know what I do whenever I'm like, okay, purple is usually what I think is a fairly strong feature, and it's going to be pretty much universally applicable. This may be a defining aspect of your core kit. Blue are ones that I think are situational, most likely at best. Green, those are going to be roleplay. I don't think that they're going to give you a whole lot of combat weight, or if they do, it's fairly insignificant. Yellow are just mechanical text. It's just, what do we need to know? What do we need to highlight to understand how the mechanic works? Orange, these are ones that I feel are actually fairly weak. And then red are features or mechanics that are actually detrimental to your character. Fortunately, on the Blood Hunter, we don't see the gray that I have, because I think that the Blood Hunter overall is a fairly well put together class. Gray are features that are just not working, or they are exploitable. Those are what I consider to be overpowered features. Luckily, I don't really, like I said, I don't see much of anything on the Blood Hunter that is what I would consider to be exploitable. Talking about some of these blood curses, these vary in terms of what part of your action economy they're going to be using, so I've highlighted that important text in yellow. Blood Curse of the Anxious. As a bonus action, you harry the body or mind of a creature within 30 feet of you, making them susceptible to forceful influence. Until the end of your next turn, charisma intimidation checks made against the cursed creature have advantage. I don't think that there's enough mechanical weight in what an intimidation check can do in combat in terms to really give it evaluate it in terms of that mechanic, so what I will say is if your party's big on I guess parlaying, so that way you can convince the thing hey, don't mess with us or something, and it goes away and you end combat, I guess you could give this a blue, but I think for the most part this is just fairly meh. However, it does have the effect of whenever you amplify it, the next wisdom saving throw the cursed creature makes before this curse ends has this advantage. So if you know that you want to wombo combo this with one of your other party members that's going to force it to make a wisdom saving throw, this is here. But overall, I think that Blood Curse of the Anxious, it's relying on party composition and I guess the table interpretation of what you're going to get out of the intimidation check to be useful. So most I can really give this as a blue. Blood Curse of Binding, I think this one is insanely strong. As a bonus action, you can attempt to bind a large or smaller creature you can see within 30 feet of you, which must make a strength saving throw. On a failure, the cursed creature's speed is reduced to 0, and it can't use reactions until the end of your next turn. This, if you're going with a frontline build for the Blood Hunter, then this is a must pick up. This is an amazing source of lockdown right here. Now, it does have the caveat, large is smaller, but if you amplify it, this curse lasts for 1 minute. You shut down its movement speed for 1 minute and can affect any creature regardless of its size. The cursed creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the curse on itself on a success. This is when I will happily take that Hemocraft die damage in order to amplify. This effect is absurdly strong. There are some instances in which I think that, like, if you are able, either number one, this thing is going to have to burn its legendary resistances, or else, like, boy, it can't counterspell. There are plenty of things that this will absolutely mess up core parts of its kit. I think that this Blood Curse is one of the strongest out of the entire package of Blood Curses you can pick up. Blood Curse of Bloated Agony. As a bonus action, you curse a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you, causing its body to swell until the end of your next turn. For the duration, the creature has disadvantage on strength checks and dexterity checks, and takes 1d8 necrotic damage if it makes more than one attack during its turn. First off, this applies to initiative rolls, right? So if you're prepping, this is really, really good. Now, if the creature has disadvantage on strength checks and dexterity checks in combat, I think that at most this is applying to like grapple, shove contests, things like that. This isn't for saving throws here, it's just the checks, right? So I think that the 1d8 necrotic damage as a kicker is really nice. If you want to go for like a more control-heavy martial sort of a Blood Hunter, you could set this up as your bonus action before your attack, in which case you can attempt to shove or grapple it during the turn. Like, this does have some combo potential in here. I think it could be a pretty decent pickup. If you amplify it, the curse lasts for 1 minute instead, and the cursed creature can make a Constitution saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the curse on itself on a success. This is mostly used to shut down multi-attackers in here. I do like the effect. The kicker is pretty unique. I don't know that we really have anything quite like this in the game. The curse lasting for 1 minute. With the Constitution saving throw stuff happening in there, that becomes much more frequent at later levels of play, that creatures are going to have that proficiency, so this could fall off a bit at that point. The Blood Curse of Corrosion, the only way that you can get this is by going Order of the Mutant, but I think that this is a very, very weak Blood Curse just in general. As a bonus action, you cause a creature within 30 feet of you to become poisoned. So there's no saving throw in there, it just becomes poisoned. Now, that doesn't override immunity or anything. The cursed creature can make a Constitution saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the curse on itself on a success. I think that this is actually very, very weak, especially at 15th level. I just don't really think that this is going to ever really pop off for you. But you can amplify it. The cursed creature takes 46 necrotic damage when you inflict the curse, no save, and it takes this damage again each time it fails a Constitution saving throw to end the curse. So this one does have essentially what is an unlimited quote-unquote duration here. The poison effect will only end if it succeeds on the Constitution saving throw, and it's going to continue to take this over and over and over again, right? Now, if you're amplifying this, this one could be a blue, it might even be a purple, but the fact of it still has to become poisoned, right? Like, if you are doing this, you inflict this curse. Man, you inflict the curse. As a bonus action, you choose it. I would say that this has to kick on as the 46 damage, like, before we even consider if the creature is poisoned or not, or else this curse is completely terrible. And it takes this damage again each time it fails a Constitution saving throw to end the curse. Use it against humanoids that you're fairly certain they're not immune to becoming poisoned, and this could be pretty significant, but other than that, I think that this is actually one of the weakest curses in here. Blood Curse of the Exorcist. I actually like this one quite a bit, but it does come on pretty late for the Order of the Ghost Slayer. So as a bonus action, you can choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of you that is charmed or frightened, or that is under a possession effect. The target creature is no longer charmed, frightened, or possessed. And then you can amplify it. A creature that charmed, frightened, or possessed the target of your curse takes 3d6 psychic damage and must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be stunned until the end of your next turn. This is one that you should definitely be amplifying. I think the Blood Curse of the Exorcist, this is one of the few blood curses that is like subclass exclusive that is actually pretty damn strong. And the fact that you will get this as the Order of the Ghost Slayer and it doesn't count against the curses that you know, this one's got to be purple. Blood Curse of Exposure is, boy, you are making your party a lot more reliable here whenever you pick this one up. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage from an attack or spell, you can use your reaction to temporarily weaken its resilience. Until the end of the target's next turn, it loses resistance to all the damage types dealt by the triggering attack or spell, including for that triggering effect. Boy, you should definitely be picking this one up. I don't know that it should be your first Blood Curse choice, but man, I think that it should definitely be your second if you can get it, or nothing else really sounds appealing. If you're going with a ranged Blood Hunter build, this one should definitely be your second. Amplify. If you amplify this, the target instead loses invulnerability to the damage types of the triggering attacker's spell. I know what Matt Mercer meant by this is immunity, so that's what I'm going to operate on this with, but has resistance to those damage types instead until the end of its next turn. I like this one a lot under the assumption that we know this should be it loses immunity, right? It might need a little wording change in there, but we know what this is supposed to do. At this point, this one is relevant at all levels of play. All levels of play. If one of your party members accidentally hits something with an effect that it is immune to, you can just pop this off and then it just negates one of the big budget things of its stat block. Blood Curse of Exposure is massive. This will keep your party relevant if they go with particularly quirky builds that may not, like they specialize in fire damage and then you wind up going into the 9 hells and fighting a lot of fiends and stuff, right? If that's the case, this is going to make your party a lot more reliable, at least for, this triggering effect here. But like that one turn Nova that you've got, and especially at later levels while you have more uses of your Blood Maledict, this is going to be way more useful. I think the Blood Curse of Exposure, like I said, definitely pick this one up at some point in your kit. Blood Curse of the Eyeless. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes an attack, you can use your reaction to roll 1 Hemocraft die and subtract the number rolled from the creature's attack roll. You can choose to use this feature after the creature's roll, but before the DM determines whether the attack hits or misses. The creature is immune to this curse if it's immune to the blinded condition. You can amplify this one to apply this curse to all the creature's attack rolls until the end of the creature's turn. So you have some multi-attack shutdown here. You roll separately for each affected attack. All right. I actually know that this one is good, except I think I would demote it from being a purple to being a blue. Whenever you're comparing this one to all the other curses that you can pick up, this one is kind of underwhelming, despite the effect actually being pretty good. I don't know that I would rather have Curse of the Bloated. I might. I mean, the fact that whenever it's going to do that, it's like you can ensure the damage, or you can have the trade-off of it just not being able to hit with it, right? Actually, let me see here, because this is a reaction, and Bloated is a bonus action. So you could potentially use both if you would like to. And I think with that combo package, it's kind of decent, actually, overall. But it's whenever you take it in with that combo only that I really like it. So the next one, Blood Curse of the Fallen Puppet. This is one I actually think is pretty weak overall. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of you drops to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to instill that creature with a final act of aggression. The creature immediately makes 1 weapon attack against the target of your choice within its range. Couple reasons why I think that this is actually pretty bad. This being one that you would pick up in favor of any of the other blood curses that you could get, this one's relying on a few things to be decent here. Number 1, there must be like minions in the combat. You must be fighting more than one enemy, right? Number 2, you have to kill that thing within range of the next target you want to hit with it, right? Now, if it has a ranged weapon, then sure, this is here, but like, it may be okay in the case of you kill a thing that has a weapon attack that also has a rider on top of it. That could be pretty okay. Whenever you amplify this, the amplification makes it to where I think that this is now useful. You can cause the cursed creature to move up to half its speed, and you grant a bonus to its attack roll equal to your Hemocraft modifier. I actually think that this part right up in here, the first like half of this sentence, should probably be just part of the Fallen Puppet thing. You need a little bit more mobility for the Fallen Puppet in order for this to really feel what I would think is reliable and useful. Otherwise, I think that this is fairly underwhelming. It's cool that you might be able to turn a minion against this master if you kill the minion, whatever. But because these are so limited and there are so many other curses that I think are just way more impactful, despite this one sounding extremely cool, I would not recommend taking it. Blood Curse of the Hell, I've marked this one as red, but the fact that you do get this as like a freebie if you go Order of the Lycan, I guess it's here and it's okay. At best though, because this is coming to you at 18th level, this is really doing for you is getting minions off of you, and yeah. So as an action, you unleash a blood-curdling howl. This is taking up your action to do this. As a Lycan, you are specializing in getting as many attacks out as you possibly can, and overriding attack, it has to be amazing for me to really consider that it would be worth it to do. This is kind of cool in here. Each creature within 30 feet of you that can hear you must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or become frightened of you until the end of your next turn. If a creature fails its saving throw by 5 or more, it is stunned while frightened in this way. I would think this was so cool if this came to you any earlier, but a creature that succeeds on the saving throw is immune to your blood curse for the next 24 hours, and you can choose any number of creatures you can see to be unaffected by the howl. If you amplify it, the range of this curse increases to 60 feet. Frightened immunity becomes abundantly common at later levels of play, especially at 18th level and higher. I just would not recommend you ever using your action to do this, rather than all the absurd stuff that you get as a Lycan with the attack action. So yeah, like, the fact that you get this for free, sure, it's here, it's an option for you, but like, I just don't really think that at that point the Lycan is ever really going to use this blood curse, especially whenever it's tied into a resource that you can be using for shutdown, that lockdown earlier, right? I don't want the thing to be able to move away from me kind of stuff. I think that this one is pretty forgettable. Blood Curse of the Marked. As a bonus action, you mark a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you. Until the end of your turn, whenever you hit the cursed creature with a weapon for which you have an active Crimson Right, you roll an additional Hemocraft die when determining the extra damage for the right. You amplify this, the next attack roll you make against the target before the end of your next turn has advantage. You have some rogue synergy happening right in there, you're getting crit fishing right there. I know that the amplify is a short burst here, but the reliability for what happens, like, you use the Blood Maledict, you're essentially you're not getting crit for the weapon, you're getting crit for the Hemocraft die, right? So the pseudo crit here is pretty cool. And note that whenever you get extra attack, this is going to double up to where the Hemocraft die, yeah, it's actually a pretty nice blood curse overall to pick up. If you're going for some reliability, what are the blood curses that I feel are going to be more relevant across all levels? Blood Curse of the Marked is definitely going to be one of those. Blood Curse of the Muddled Mind. As a bonus action, you curse a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you that is concentrating on a spell or using a feature that requires concentration. That creature has disadvantage on the next Constitution saving throw it makes to maintain concentration before the end of your next turn. You can amplify this, causing the creature to make all Constitution saving throws that are made to maintain concentration with disadvantage. Now, this is a situational one. It is a cool effect, but it is your concentration breaking, which is always going to be, this is a Mage Slayer kind of an effect, right? So I like the idea, I like the flavor that's in here, but this is probably situational at best. If you are feeling like you are just not really getting the number of options that you would really like as a Blood Hunter to feel like it would be worth picking this one up, I would say ignore it. I think that the Blood Hunter, this is an example right here of a really cool effect if the Blood Hunter had some more flexibility in terms of the number of blood curses that it could choose. And then lastly, we have the Blood Curse of the Soul Eater. This is for 18th level, Order of the Profane Soul. I marked the 18th level as I think that this is actually a little bit weak, but for what this actually does, I think it's actually fair to knock this off. This is one of the only subclass specific ones that I think is actually extremely impactful. When a creature that isn't a construct or undead is reduced to 0 hit points within 30 feet of you, you can use a reaction to offer their life energy to your patron in exchange for power. Until the end of your next turn, you make attacks with advantage and you have resistance to all damage. Note, this would break Bag of Rats, but in a way, I guess I don't really mind too much because you are blowing a use of your Blood Maledict in order to get that, so I think that there is something to prevent the exploit happening in there, but you can amplify this to just straight up regain one of your expended Warlock spell slots. And once you've amplified the Blood Curse, you must finish a long rest before you can amplify it again. This one is very, very impactful because not only are you getting what I feel is a fairly great, I mean, resistance to all damage. You make all attacks with advantage. Oh boy, this is absurdly good. You regaining the expended Warlock spell slot on top of that. Not only does this have impact in your follow-up turn after this takes effect, but you regain an expended Warlock spell slot. This is so insanely strong for a Blood Curse. I wish all the other subclasses had built into something quite like this. This is absurdly good. Okay, so from your Blood Maledict, we're going to go on to second level. At second level, you adopt a fighting style as your specialty. Choose one of the following options, and you can't take a fighting style option more than once, even if you later get to choose again. With the fighting style options that you get in here, the reason why I've marked dueling, great weapon fighting, and 2-weapon fighting as blue is because I just sort of feel like more than other martialists, Blood Hunter's going to have a pretty hard time hanging out in the front line just because of the reduction dealt with all the Hemocraft stuff, right? So I'm effectively evaluating them as a pseudo midliner, but I think that ranged Blood Hunters are really where this class is like trying to direct you to play. We all love the fantasy of, Geralt with the swords and all that stuff, but like the loadout of what's happening in here, I just think that with what's happening with the Blood Maledict, the fact that the damage can't be reduced in any way, I just don't know really how effective it's going to be at frontlining, but I do feel like a backline ranged Blood Hunter is going to be pretty sick nasty. But yeah, so we all know how the fighting styles operate. We'll move on to second level with our Crimson Rite. So here at second level, you learn to invoke a Rite of Hemocraft that infuses your weapon strikes with elemental energy. As a bonus action, you can activate any rite you know on one weapon you're holding. The effects of the rite last until you finish a short or long rest. When you activate a rite, you take necrotic damage equal to 1 roll of your Hemocraft die, and this damage can't be reduced in any way. While the rite is in effect, attacks you make with the weapon are magical, and deal extra damage equal to your Hemocraft die of the type determined by the chosen rite. A weapon can hold only one active rite at a time. Other creatures can't benefit from your rite. You choose one rite from the Crimson Rites below when you first gain this feature. You learn an additional Crimson Rite at 7th level, and again at 14th level. So generally, these are all pretty okay damage types to be dishing out. I don't think any of them are necessarily superior choices than the other options. With the fire damage, this might fall off a little bit later. Cold damage kind of suffers from a bit of the same problem, not entirely too much. Lightning damage, it has decent coverage, but I think lightning damage seems to be not quite as common of a resistance as fire damage, if I'm recalling that correctly. But up at 14th level, I think that we do have a pretty big disparity happening, where I do think that psychic damage is going to fall off pretty hard compared to thunder or necrotic damage. Thunder or necrotic tend to be a little uncommon in terms of their resistances, and from what I looked at, I think thunder is actually the least common in terms of what's resisted or immune. But psychic damage does get to be fairly frequent later on, and you do have a feature in here that is going to deal psychic damage kind of as a tester already. I just feel like Rite of the Oracle, compared to the other two, I just don't know that it's going to have the reliability that the other ones have. After that, here at 3rd level, you are going to pick up your subclass, which is called your Blood Hunter Order. You can choose here from the Ghost Slayer, the Lycan, the Mutant, or the Profane Soul. Just sort of a brief overview into those real quick. I won't be breaking down the subclasses themselves because these are usually just, class reviews here. I may do subclass reviews later on in videos if this one does well enough. So leave a like and subscribe if you want to see that kind of content. Let me know. So the Order of the Ghost Slayer I see mostly as you're mostly specializing as a striker, but in a way that makes you a bit more reliable. So you're focusing on single target damage. You can change the damage dealt by your right to radiant damage, which is much, much, much more reliable than any of the other damage types that you can deal up there. And you have the ability to move through walls. So if you want to go with that series sort of, Witcher, I like the flavor of the Ghost Slayer more than I think the other ones personally. The Order of the Lycan, if you want to play a werewolf, there you go. The Lycan itself is probably the most effective tank out of any of the other options here. So if you want to go with a Blood Hunter tank, that may be the way that you need to specialize right there. It does have a detriment built into one of the mechanics that might screw over your buddies a bit. So, the DC is low enough to where I think it won't be a huge issue. And with smart positioning, you may be able to overcome that in a way that's actually, beneficial to you anyways. The Order of the Mutant, you're getting a bunch of these different mutagens, so you're kind of a flexible whatever you really want to be, sort of a high utility character with the mutant. But the mutagens do have their own detriments to them as well. And the Order of the Profane Soul is meant to be a half-caster warlock, or a third pact caster in a way. The mechanics that are over there, I think, are probably going to overperform compared to the other subclasses just in general. But like I said, I won't be doing a whole breakdown on those right now. But I do think that in terms of what are the most reliable ones here, I think that the Ghost Slayer and the Profane Soul, the Ghost Slayer is going to be reliable all around. It's just a very, very well-rounded Blood Hunter. The Order of the Lycan is going to hyper-focus on, like I said, probably tanking and single target damage. Order of the Mutant, their high utility self-buffing mechanic in there. And then the Order of the Profane Soul is quasi warlock, so you get some arcane blasting and striking potential in there. They're going to get their standard ability score improvement. And here at 5th level, you're going to get your extra attack. We all know how extra attack is going to operate. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. Now, Brand of Castigation kicks on here at 6th level. It's at this point where I think that the Blood Hunter, despite having quite a lot of good stuff early on, truly kicks on. When you damage a creature with a weapon for which you have an active Crimson Right, you can channel Hemocratic magic to sear an arcane brand into that creature. No action required. You always know the direction to the branded creature as long as it's on the same plane as you. Further, each time the branded creature deals damage to you or a creature you can see within 5 feet of you, the branded creature takes damage, a psychic damage, equal to your Hemocraft modifier, minimum of 1. So you do have flat damage that you're dishing out here. And this is each time the creature deals damage to you or a creature you can see within 5 feet of you. If you're a backliner, then, hang out near your wizard buddies and whatnot if you want to get some uses out of this. If you're a frontliner, up there with your paladin, or let's say creatures getting opportunity attacks because your monk went in and just went flurry of blows rather than disengaging, you can see some love out of this one right here. But your overall damage per round is actually going to increase in a way that you could say, I guess, is comparable to a D6, maybe a D8, maybe a D10 later on, right? But it is flat damage you're getting here. Your brand lasts until you dismiss it, or until you use this feature to apply a brand to another creature. Your brand can be dispelled with Dispel Magic, and is treated as a spell with a level equal to half your Blood Hunter level, maximum of 9th level. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. With optimal resting, you're getting this every combat, and it doesn't just last until the end of the combat, it's lasting until you dismiss it, right? I like Brand of Castigation quite a bit because it is enhancing the, sort of a tracker roleplay dynamic that the Blood Hunter is meant to evoke. In a way, I do think that, it would be nice if Ranger could get something kind of similar to this, But Anyways, so in dealing the psychic damage equal to your Hemocraft modifier, the fact that that's just on and it's someone else's action economy doing that, yeah. I like Brand of Castigation. Brand of Castigation. The fact of this doesn't have a duration, it's just on for you. You don't have to use up any more of your action economy in order to use this. It's just a no action required. You're going to deal additional damage to the thing if that's going to be hostile, right? And it's attacking a creature within 5 feet of you, right? So this is informing that you want to be like the Blood Hunter wants to be a frontliner in a way. It still just feels like it needs some more resources to support a frontline playstyle, or at least like a midline harasser playstyle. As of the most part right here, if the creature is dealing like range damage to your wizard or something, then like, yeah, this could be fairly useful as a ranged archetype. This just feels like a frontline sort of a feature that was thrown on something that I do feel is pushing you more towards the back line. Now at 9th level, realize this whole time as you've been getting levels, your Hemocraft die is going to increase in size, but here you're going to get Grim Psychometry. This is just so metal AF. I love the name. When you reach 9th level, you gain a supernatural talent for discerning the secrets surrounding mysterious relics or places touched by evil. Whenever you make an intelligence history check to recall information about the sinister or tragic history of an object you are touching or your current location, you have advantage on the check. At the DM's discretion, a suitably high roll might cause your character to experience brief visions of the past connected to the object or location. So, great narrative fluff happening in here. It is a ribbon that does have some mechanical weight in here. At 9th level, I would really hope that the class will be giving you a power spike of sorts. Here at this level, you aren't really getting much of anything outside of the increase to your proficiency bonus. Your Hemocraft die has already been a d6 for quite a while. Grim Psychometry isn't even giving you an additional blood curse around here. I just think here at 9th level, they needed something that was a bit more of a power spike rather than something that is an interaction. It has weight, but it is mostly a ribbon. However, 10th level kicks on and they get Dark Augmentation. This is a really strong defensive and positioning feature here. The magic of Hemocraft suffuses your body to permanently reinforce your resilience. Your speed increases by 5 feet, and you have a bonus to strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws equal to your Hemocraft modifier, minimum of +1. Now, going up here to the table, this is kicking on here at 10th level, right? +4. If you just so happen to have proficiency with them because you took resilience, this is going to stack on top of that. This is just a bonus that you're getting equal to your Hemocraft modifier. On top of, if you're already proficient with it, there you go, or the other modifier that you're adding in there, right? So strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws. Like, dexterity and constitution are extremely common. These are two strong saves that on top of potentially having proficiency with, you're now getting a plus maybe 3, +4, or +5 on top of it. It could have just been this part of the feature right here, and I still would have given it a purple. The increase to your speed by 5 feet, that I would say that arguably this should have kicked on earlier. But yeah, Dark Augmentation, jeez, that is a hell of a defensive feature to push you up into the 3rd tier of play. 13th level, Brand of Tethering. Your Brand of Castigation is getting an improvement here. So the psychic damage from your Brand of Castigation increases to twice your Hemocraft modifier, minimum of 2. Additionally, a branded creature can't take the dash action, and if it attempts to teleport or leave its current plane by any means, it takes 46 psychic damage and must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failure, the attempt to teleport or leave the plane fails. Wow! This is the kind of power right here I would definitely expect. This later part of it right here, the branded creature can't take the dash action. This is cool. If it had just been this right here, I'd be like, that's pretty sick nasty. This other part of it, if this was like the 17th level improvement, I would say that this is still so insanely good. This kicking on for you at 13th, It is situational that a creature is going to have that. But when it does, boy, this is going to be so clutch for you. If you've seen, I guess, like maybe Matt was having some visions of like, you know, the later part of Critical Role Campaign 1. But like, if you're thinking about what that would have done in that fight right there, how impactful that would have been to that story. Oh, man. Yeah. Brandon Tethering, I think that this is absolutely sick, disgustingly good. Like I said, if it had just been all this up here, I would have already marked it as purple. The fact that it has this other kicker right here that I think is something I probably would have given a class at 15th or later. Oh, man. Yeah, this is so good. Hardened Soul, starting at 14th level, you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed and frightened. This one, if you go with certain races, this could feel a little bit redundant, right? But this just giving you the resist or the saving throw advantage against being charmed and frightened. These are fairly frequent conditions that are going to pop up very, very often. I do think that Hardened Soul, there may be an argument to be made that it could have kicked on at 7th and it would have been all right. I do think that at 7th level, like they're getting the Crimson Red. Okay, maybe 7th, maybe a little bit early. Like, I think that this could have been okay to give them, I don't know about 5th, because they do have a nice power spike in there. Maybe at 4th, or like, I just wouldn't see a problem with this kicking on for you way earlier on. And you do have the Crimson Rite improvement kicking on there as well. So yeah. Oh, and you get another Blood Curse choice. Yeah, I liked Hardened Soul, but I think that it comes on just a little bit late for you. Their big bad capstone, Sanguine Mastery. Upon reaching 20th level, your mastery of blood magic reaches its height, mitigating your sacrifice and empowering your expertise. Once per turn, whenever a Blood Hunter feature requires you to roll a Hemocraft die, you can re-roll the die and use either roll. So this part right in here, I'm thinking like, you know, you're going to reduce the attack roll and you're not happy with that roll, you can roll it again, right? But I guess this is also saying once per turn, whenever a feature requires you to roll a Hemocraft die, and you rolled like, oh, a D10, you rolled a 10 on the D10, is that it, right? Yeah. You roll a 10 on the D10, this could allow you to reduce that. So it does have more uses than just something you're using offensively as a debuff or for damage. I do like that actually quite a bit, but it's the kicker on here that makes this absolutely a purple. Additionally, whenever you score a critical hit with a weapon for which you have an active Crimson Rite, you regain 1 expended use of your Blood Maledict feature. This is incentivizing you right here. Yes, you are meant to be a striker. You are meant to be exploiting the enemy here to make sure that you are generating the crit fish, right? It's at this point that I would think that, like, if you're comfortable with the Blood Hunter, potentially, we'll say quote unquote, getting infinite uses of it, right? With optimal, whatever. I think that they should definitely have a bit more uses of it in some way. I think that the scaling gradient overall for the uses that they have of their Blood Maledict, it feels just a little bit too conservative in my opinion. Even though the effects are pretty strong overall, the fact that you can only get 1 here at first level, especially because you can only know 1, I would like to see probably a bit more flexibility happen in the Blood Hunter, where you can at least get 2 blood curses of your choice right here. Even if you can only use 1 per short or long rest, optimally, you only having that once per combat encounter, I just feel like they're way too starved on resources really early on. The Blood Hunter, if you want to allow to set your tables, again, have that talk at session 0 with your party, see if everybody's cool with the narrative. But if you want my opinion because you're here to see whether or not I feel like the class is balanced, I think this one is safe for play. I don't think it's going to wreck your game by any means. I don't really have an issue with the design here, other than the fact of it may be a bit difficult or potentially frustrating for new players to step in and pilot. That's going to do it for me on this one. Thank you all so much for being here. Subscribe if you haven't already, because if you like this sort of a designer's view on how to play a class, what all it's giving you, I've got plenty of videos on that here on the channel. Go check out some of my other class guides if you're interested in checking out some of the other official options and seeing a designer's eye on it. I want to give a shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping me keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. Y'all are absolute heroes. And hey, go check out my Patreon if you haven't already. The Mimic Race from last month is over there and available right now. This upcoming month, I'm actually designing a Warlock Pack Boon of the Crown, really inspired by Cult of the Lamb. So sign up over there, and if you support me, you're going to get the full PDF layout with the artwork by Maxwell Polikoff and all that good business. So yeah, anyways guys, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.